Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps. Today I'm going to show you how to do the knit stitch. I'll show you two different methods, one called English and one called Continental. And I'll do them both right-handed and left-handed. First, let's talk about how to hold your working yarn. Whichever hand you use to hold your yarn, the goal is to create a tensioned work area like this, while at the same time being able to hold one of your needles in each hand. I like to wrap my yarn over my index finger, under the next two fingers, and then over my pinky. Sometimes, depending on which hand I'm using, I'll give the yarn an extra twist around my index finger just for better control. This is what it looks like in my other hand. My index finger sticks out to create that tensioned work area. My thumb and other fingers are then free to hold my needle and my work. If you find a different way that's more comfortable for you, that's fine. The key is to find a position that gives you control of both the yarn and the needle without causing any stress or pain to your hand. Now we're ready to knit. Let's look first at the English method, right-handed. This is the way I usually knit. Tension your yarn in your right hand and then hold your working needle, that's the empty one, in the same hand. Hold your other needle with all the stitches on it in your left hand. Make sure the yarn is behind your working needle, not in front like this, behind your working needle. Then insert your working needle from front to back through the first stitch. Now notice I'm going right up next to the other needle, right under that loop. I'm not going down here. You want to make sure your needles touch as they pass. Then bring your working yarn up and over the tip of your working needle. So you're coming up from the left, over the tip, and down to the right to create a new stitch. Notice that when I do this, I'm letting go to some extent of this needle. Now I can do it while still holding on to it, but that's a little bit, it takes a little practice to get that motion down. So when you're first starting, you can let go of this needle. Just hold it right here where it crosses. Hold it with your left hand so you can let go, wrap the yarn around, and then pick it back up. As you get the hang of it, you'll start being able to do this without letting go of your working needle. And that's the goal right there, okay? So you wrap the yarn from the left over the top and down to the right. That creates a new stitch. Now, scoop that new stitch through the old stitch. Do you see that? So there's my new stitch on the needle right there. I'm going to scoop it through this hole right there. Then finally, I'm going to drop that old stitch off the other needle, and now I've made a new stitch and it's on my working needle. Let's do that one more time. Insert your needle into the stitch, wrap the yarn around the needle from coming up from the left, over and down to the right, scoop the new stitch through the old stitch, and then throw the old stitch off of the left needle. Now you have another stitch on your right needle. Let's do it a little bit faster. Okay, I'll show you one more time. Insert, wrap, scoop, and toss. Now there's a good, if somewhat murderous mnemonic for knitting English style, and it goes like this. Stab it, strangle it, rip its guts out, throw it off a cliff. Let's see that again. Stab it, strangle it, rip its guts out, throw it off a cliff. So that's a fun way to remember it if you want to. We're going to keep doing this all the way across the row. I have 4 stitches left here. Insert, wrap, pull out, and toss off the needle. Insert, wrap, pull it through, toss it off the needle. Last one. And there we go. Next, let's look at the same stitch but with the yarn tensioned in the other hand. That's called continental knitting. For right-handed continental knitting, the only thing in your right hand is the working needle. Tension your yarn with your left hand and hold the other needle with all the stitches on it in your left hand, just like this. Again, make sure the yarn is at the back of your work for knitting. You don't want the yarn to be here. You want it to be at the back. And you can tell by looking at this first stitch. Do you see when I do this, I'm seeing the top of the stitch, which is just one loop. If I bring the yarn in the front, it pulls up the bottom of the stitch and I see the yarn coming out like that with the two legs from the bottom. So that's wrong. I want the yarn to be at the back like that. Now insert your needle from front to back into that first stitch. Again, remember your needles need to touch as they cross. You want to go right through that stitch, not below it, not down here. You want to go right through that one loop that's right on the needle. Now for Continental, we're going to scoop up the yarn instead of wrapping it. So just bring your needle down over this working yarn and scoop it through that hole, okay? And pull it out, and that puts the new stitch onto your right needle, and you can throw the old stitch off your left needle. Again, make sure this yarn stays behind your work. You don't want to bring it to the front. You want it in the back for knitting. Let's see that again. Stick your needle into the stitch, right up close to the other needle, scoop that yarn through to create a new stitch, and then throw the old stitch off your needle. Again, insert your needle, scoop the yarn through. I'm trying to turn it so you can see that. Let's try that again. Scoop that yarn through. So I'm going to bring my needle down over that yarn and scoop it up through that hole, okay? And then throw the old stitch off. And we just keep doing this all the way across the row. And that's the knit stitch Continental style. Now let's look at doing this all left-handed. For left-handed English style knitting, tension your yarn with your left hand and hold your working needle, that's the empty one, in the same hand. Hold your other needle with the stitches on it in your right hand. Again, make sure your yarn is behind the working needle, not in front. You want it behind. And we're going to insert our needle from front to back through that first stitch. Make sure that your needles touch as they cross. You don't want to be inserting your needle below the stitch. You want it to be right in that one little loop right there, that stitch. Okay? Now we're going to bring the yarn over and around the tip of the needle. This time we're coming up from the right, up and over and down to the left. Now I am right-handed, so I don't quite have the dexterity to do that without letting go of the needle. So what I'm doing is I insert my needle like that, and then I let go with my left hand and grab it with my right hand, just like that, do the wrap, and then pick it back up with my left hand. That's not the fastest way to do it, but it's the only way I can do it since I am right-handed. If you have the dexterity, you should be able to get to where you can do this wrapping motion without letting go. So something like that. Oh, look, I did it. Okay, so now we've created our new stitch by wrapping it around the needle, and then we're going to scoop that new stitch through the hole, so through the old stitch, and then we throw the old stitch off the needle. So this can follow the same mnemonic as it did when we did it right-handed. You stab it, you strangle it, you rip its guts out, and you throw it off a cliff. So again, let's look at that one more time. Insert your needle, wrap the yarn around from left to right, scoop it out to create the new stitch, and then throw the old stitch off the needle. And we're going to keep doing this for every stitch across the row. And like I said, I am right-handed, so I'm a little bit more floppy at the left-handed version. And there we go. Now let's look at knitting left-handed continental. For left-handed continental knitting, hold your working needle, that's the empty one, in your left hand. Tension your yarn with your right hand and hold the other needle in the same hand. Again, make sure your yarn is at the back of your work, not in front, and you can tell by looking at whether you see the top of the stitch, which is just one loop, or whether you're seeing the legs of the stitch, which is these two kind of loops, this loop going around the yarn like that. So this is wrong for knitting, and this is right for the knit stitch. Okay, you want the yarn at the back. Now again, we're going to insert our needle into the first stitch from front to back. And now this time, instead of wrapping the yarn around it, we're going to scoop the yarn up and pull it through. So just scoop the yarn up, pull it through, and throw the needle or throw the stitch off of your needle. Let's look at that again. Insert the needle from front to back, scoop the yarn up, and pull it through that hole, like that, and then throw the old stitch off the needle. One more time. Insert our needle from front to back, scoop that yarn up, pull it through that hole that we made, and throw the old stitch off the needle. And we're going to keep doing this in every stitch across the row. Now again, I'm a little bit floppy at this because I am right-handed, so this is a little bit awkward, and my stitches are probably a little too tight. That happens when you're first learning. Eventually, you will get a nice even tension and it will flow a little bit better. And there's the left-handed knit stitch, continental style. So now what happens when you get to the end of a row and there's no more stitches to knit? Let's look at how to turn your work to start a new row. Regardless of what method you're using or which hand you're using, after you finish the row, all the stitches will be on your working needle and your other needle will be empty. So all you have to do is switch the needles to the opposite hand, and now the needle that's empty becomes your new working needle, and the needle with all the stitches on it becomes the other needle. So if I was knitting right-handed, say I was doing English style right-handed, I would have just gotten here where all of the stitches are now on my right needle and my left needle is empty, so I would just switch hands and I would be ready to start the next row. So whichever style you're using, that's all you have to do, just switch hands and you're ready to start the next row. And that's how you do the knit stitch, both left-handed and right-handed, English style and continental. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!